Hello, everybody. Welcome to the NTPA Recap Show, episode number 2, with your hosts Dom Santina and John Dunlop, where they will focus on the events from both sessions of the Chapel Hill Super Bowl of the South.
Grand National Pro Stock. In the first night of competition, it became a game of can you top this, as ordinarily satisfactory distances like that of test puller Denny Brown's Green with Envy at 310 and Spencer's Winovx 329 were blown away by the first 363 laid down by Brandon Simon. But the biggest number came on hook number 9, as Carlton Cope's Mac Nasty pulled until the front wheels came to rest on the grass, reaching 384.8 feet. The division's co-point leader, Rob Russell's Workhorse Pro, nearly matched it 5 hooks later to strike a blow for the red side and nearly grab Rob his first Chapel Hill Pro Stock win after years of success in Diesel Super. And Danny Schmucker, who later admitted he hadn't yet found his dad Kevin's luck when it came to the Tennessee track, drove Rampage into a solid third near the end of the class. On Saturday, a sled reset left Braden Schrammick as its test puller and Braden flew that orange flag atop the leaderboard for nearly the whole class, including a challenge on the very next hook from the Session 1 winner, Carlton Cope, who earned Mike Connie an excellent 58-point weekend on the Grand National Tour. But I say nearly because Russell wasn't satisfied with second and edged out the Agco by just 13 inches to take the win. Announcer Butch Krieger reminded Russell on the medal stand that he got to be on the T-shirt because of that victory, and Russell enthused, well, I guess I'll have to come back. So Russell is following the path of Darren Hunt, the last Case IH Pro Stock champion, who just 2 years ago had a strong showing in Chapel Hill. And his 5-point lead in the standings, Russell's that is tied for the second greatest current advantage among any leader going into Brandenburg and Fort Recovery weekend. It's Brandon Simon's Loud and Heavy that's chasing the hardest, with the Mac Trailer teams, Mac Nasty third, coming from Cope's first and third over the weekend. Simon's Loud and Loaded is in fourth, and the Swanevx Bootlegger is in fifth at minus 21. Admittedly, the gap has widened at the top with 18 tractors having appeared in Chapel Hill to kind of spread things out a little bit, but it narrows as you go, with 10th place only 32 behind Russell.
Yeah, Friday's poll was fun to watch. Sitting back there in the scoreboard trailer, I know we had talked as a group before the poll that we wanted to stop people between 320 to 330 as total distance, because that's really as big as the track could go. And we got to that 9th place poll there, and 380 feet or 360 in between there is what we started getting. And we're like, well, we're too far into the class to reset everything now, so we just have to go with it. But it definitely made
a tipping point, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely made it fun for some of those fans in the stands to watch tractors take it out the other end of the track.
And you in particular have a perspective on that. You were operating laser, correct?
Yeah, I was up in the scoreboard trailer just to the right of the scoreboard doing the laser. So
yeah, for you, for the crowd, they kept getting further and further away, and for you, they kept getting closer and closer. And I just kind of wonder, this is your first year of the sport, how that felt. Can you have this smoke get closer and closer to your trailer?
There was still, I had water barrels and cement blocks in front of me, and there was still probably 20 to 30 feet from the end of it. But it made it a little uncomfortable knowing that they were that close.
Yeah, so. Yeah, completely safe entirely, but it was very exciting just seeing them move down the track further and further. It was an unbelievable class. And again, Denny Brown sitting there at 310 thinking, what do I got to do here? Because that's usually a pretty solid distance in Chapel Hill, where, as you said, they do aim for like a 310 to 320 winner. So
yeah, absolutely. And the thing is actually they let off. The flagman, I had the crew radio on. They're saying that he felt comfortable to let him go, and the pullers actually let off. So it could have even been closer to 400 had they gone all the way.
Well, just imagine how fast it was coming up for them. I think even Carlton said in the winter interview, when it was asked, how was the pole? It was fast. And when you get those kind of speeds build up, it's certainly, you see stuff at the end of the track and you want to be safe about it. So it gives you pause. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And Saturday wasn't as exciting with long distance pulls, but still a good show regardless.
Absolutely. And the late win there with Rob Russell. He's always had a very good showing in Chapel Hill, no matter what division he's pulled in. He just seems to have a real knack for that dirt. But to see him get a Chapel Hill win then in a different division from what he's used to, that was very exciting. For those of us who remember that Rob Russell name from the late 80s, very impressive.
All right,
Okay.
on to the next class.
Okay, yep, on the diesels, I think, next.
Okay.
Okay. On Friday night, Esden Lane led off with Diggin' Fever and set a mark at 335 and 4 that would not be surpassed. It marked the Kings' first victory in the Mid-South since 2010. Mike Beck's high-tech redneck, renewed from repairs made since Rockwell, drove into a temporary second place 4 hooks later, and it was 4 feet behind Esden. And then Brandon Hunt and his Livin' a Dream provided a foreshadowing of Saturday with a 334 and 1 that almost nudged the leader cone. In session 2, we welcomed some new names to the Chapel Hill podium as the father-son team of John and Jacob Belfance, formerly of New York and now of Alabama, put it on the GN regulars with a 323 and 4 on the new Chainbreaker and a 311 and 8 on the old reliable Chain Reaction. But saving the best for last, as announcer Jeremy Krieger put it, was Brandon Hunt, as his dream dashed theirs with a 335 and 2, no doubter, and what he said was his favorite place to pull. For his part, after his big win on Saturday, Brandon was already thinking about this coming week. Have to go to Ford, he explained. Been there last year, won there last year, have to defend. That's proof that it's more than just the win that matters to a lot of these pullers. It's often the pairing of a win and a venue that really sticks with them. Who else has to go to Fort? Well, everybody who wants a shot at the title, and that's this year's current leader, Travis Schlabach and Bone Twister. Your top challenger, Esden Lane, with a very consistent, by his own words, Diggin' Fever at 2 points back. Kent Payne's Super Rooster down 6 after a pair of thirds, and Steve Burge's Lock and Load down 7 after a pair of fourths. Beck's third on Friday, combined with Tabitha DeMars' struggles with Smokin' Hot Deer, has opened up some space between them, namely 10.5 points, but that's less than 1 GN hook is worth, so you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Great weekend. Good to see the Belfances get on the board. Always cool to see a father-son team there on Saturday. And Brandon Hunt having himself a weekend with a first and second. And still a lot of hooks to go. Still 9 to go here for the Superstock Diesel class.
Yeah, Brandon does indeed love the pull there. We've seen him over the years pull there, if nowhere else on our circuit, or like a couple 3 weekends in a row with us. And it just seems like it with H&R being such a big part of that event from the sponsor side, and that is the family business. Brandon just likes to turn up the wick and put a show on for the crowd there, and they really appreciate it.
Yeah, 2 great pulls for him as well. All right.
Okay, on to minis.
On to minis.
Okay. Austin Boyd started to conjure thoughts of that Pro Stock class. Some would say they were nightmares, but from the stands, it was pretty awesome. When he took hook number 2 to 344 feet with Green Streak Black, one of the Lucas Oil Green Streak team's 2 entries in this class and 4 overall on the weekend. Boyd's pass would stand for 3 more hooks until Sam McCrary wheeled his carbon copy into the lead at 347 flat. And it led, and it led, and after 15 more had tried, Sam McCrary found himself in the club of Grand National Event winners. I love this place, he later said to Butch Krieger, and why not? Ken Veeney made a mid-class bid for third at 333 and said, with Ken's characteristic humor, that he'd just have to try harder the next night. Well, Sam would finish 4th the next night after failing to topple Tyler Slop, who was the first to really push that O'Reilly leader flag from Camille Shelton's 329 all the way to 342 feet on Have No Mercy. And then Adam Bauer, having scratched a wounded Iron Toy, took his team's lone mini Cowboy up about a front wheel past Tyler at 343 and 6 on the nicest straight line wheels up pass you'll ever see. And then Ken did try harder, but the competition got tougher, so he stayed put in 3rd. All the same, Ken is where everybody wants to be, leading a tough pack of 19-point earning minis after Chapel Hill. He's now a point ahead of Bruce Slaw's quarter scale Show No Mercy, and he's 2 ahead of Cowboy Up, CJ Graychick's Pile Driver, and teammate Chase Richardson's Vibrator. And that first-time winner, McCrary, he's on the cusp of an Enderley berth, only 2 points behind the UD contracting team.
Yeah, you have to laugh at Ken, too, because I saw that interview on Friday. He goes, yeah, I'll take 3rd. 3rd's good enough. He's like, but I'm still going to try to get a win in a second here tomorrow. That was Friday night. So got to laugh about that. Good to see Ken up there on the podium. Cool to see Sam get a win. And Adam Bauer on Saturday, big win. That was huge.
Yep. Yeah, his quote after the Unlimited class, I'll mention that in just a moment. But it was really good to see him back on top in a mini class. he's so familiar with that spot in Chapel Hill, and it was kind of weird the last few years to see him struggle there so much. He has had electrical issues with both tractors down there, just very uncharacteristic for that team to have such struggles, but nice to see him back on top, and really always nice to see Ken in the winner's circle, because you just love when somebody has a mic in front of him. He's bound to say something to get the crowd going nuts. So he is the man when it comes to quotes.
Yes, he is.
Yep.
As you mentioned there, John, points really tight through the top 7, 8, just 6 points between them, those 7 guys. So it's going to be interesting.
And Fort can be a major decider because it draws minis from all over the country as well. We'll have a number of regional minis probably stop in there, and that won't shake the points up so much because they don't count in the Grand National points, but it can sure shake the placings up. You can have some surprise winners and some surprise, 4th, 5th place finishers, and knock some Grand National guys off the perch.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see. They still have 7 hooks, so 7 points, 7 hooks. It's going to be close.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You might have different winners every week the rest of the way. I wouldn't be surprised you did.
All right. Are we going to Unlimiteds now?
Yep, let's do Unlimited. 5-engine cross-threaded after having surpassed Brad Benedict's nonsense. But Bauer's 334 could not withstand the ferocious pass of Chuck Knapp's Screamin' D, which broke through for a 344. It had been 25 months since Knapp had last tasted victory, which came in Toma in 2019. But coming out close behind his 4-engine machine was Steve Bollinger's Money Pit, whose 3 bullets were a perfect match to the Chapel Hill clay and reached 341 feet. With Bollinger away at a prior commitment, teammate and lifelong friend Craig Corzine jumped into the seat of Money Pit as well as his own Shell Rotella-sponsored second-degree burn. On Bollinger's triple, his 321 and 6 was good for third. Grayson Shelton created a stir at 340 with Ruckus after Brother Reese had to scratch Team Tractor shell-shocked. But the tractor with a tone all its own, cross-threaded, was not to be denied on night 2, and Bauer had his first win in Marshall County since 2015. We just tightened up some bolts and looked at stuff, Bauer said nonchalantly about his prep between Friday and Saturday. Don't you believe it? The team and every team crawls all over these tractors, making sure they are right and tight, as our colleague Doc Riley likes to say. As far as the standings are concerned, Chuck Knapp took over first with his win on Friday and maintained it through his 6th on Saturday, as several challengers had difficulty or tough runs. But Bauer's cross-threaded was the big upward mover from 6th, leaving Soggy Rockwell to 2nd, just 3 back. Joe Ader's title defense is still very much alive, despite 2 finishes out of the top 5. He's 4 back. Ricky Rose got healthy with a 5th on Saturday and now sits that position in the standings at -11. And Mark Cole's Gambler is 12 points down to the leaders, having slipped from 4th to 5th after a 4th and 5th in Lions Motorsports Park.
I had to stop in with Chuck Knapp.
Oh, okay, great.
D team. So we'll take a look at what he had to say.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Dom Santina here with NTPA Championship Pulling, and I'm standing with Chuck Knapp, winner of Session 1 here in Chapel Hill, Tennessee. Chuck, back-to-back wins now. It's got to feel pretty good out there. And what'd you find last night to help you get yourself the win?
We'd been struggling. Our first hook this year was Toma, and we went out of bounds, had a bad run. Couldn't figure out what was going on. We did a lot of stuff at home trying to figure it out. Went to Rockwell, and it still wandered to the right, but we got a win out of it. We sort of corrected our problem. We came here and did some work on the hitch and straightened her out, and that's what it takes. Nice straight run, and we got the good stuff out of it.
It sure was fun to watch, fans. If you weren't there in person watching in Rockwell or here in Chapel Hill, Chuck had a fun pass to watch in Rockwell, going using the whole track, starting in the left corner, going to the right corner, just keeping it in bounds, as he said, to get the win there. And then last night, pulling it out of the ballpark, 344 feet on a track that we were expecting to be 320 to 330. How did it feel to pull it out of the ballpark like that?
Well, that was a blast. It's always a blast. You get in these tractors and you get a run like that, it makes it all worthwhile finally again after a lot of hard work. Those runs come far and few between. You get on a roll and it's a lot of fun, but these unlimited modifieds have a way of crushing your winning streak. These things are fickle. They break a lot, and it's a lot of stuff happening in a hurry. So we take them when we can get them.
Well, you're on a roll right now. Let's see if we can keep it on a roll 3 straight tonight. Anything big changes tonight, or just going to keep it simple and hope we get 3 in a row?
We're going to leave her alone. See, we're figuring these guys build an awesome track. They seem to be pretty consistent.
Yeah, and as we heard with Chuck Knapp there, he he had the first hook, actually. I didn't know that before I went and talked to him, but he had the first hook on Saturday. And so he had a 312 pass, which he ended up accepting, which is, we'll talk about in the unlimiteds here in a minute, or in the 2-wheel drives here in a minute. But it's kind of tough as the first hook. A 312, he thought that was going to be pretty good. And Bauer comes through, finally gets everything right. And I think on the radios, they even said it was a perfect pass. Everything just went right for Adam Bauer. And I know throughout the NTPA organization, everyone was happy to see Adam, who's had so much success, get back to the top step. And it's going to be interesting. Chuck's gone for 5 championships. Adam Bauer looking back to get to the top spot again. And with 5 hooks left to go, it's going to be a tight battle between those two, especially if they can keep rolling the way they have been the last week or so.
Yep. Yeah, I remember from the winning interview, or actually the second place interview, Grayson Shelton mentioned when that tractor sits down, as he put it, when both of his back tires has settled into the dirt like they need to, and he's still under full power, oh my goodness, it's just almost limitless what that tractor is capable of doing. And I mentioned it has a sound all its own. I mentioned this to every announcer as I'm sitting next to them with my computer. That tractor, more than any other, will set off the vibration alarm for my hard drive. Every single time. Just I can tell that tractor by the sound of the startup, and just shakes the ground like almost no other. But Chuck had a brilliant weekend, and it's the kind of thing that's what carries you to a championship, is being able to have a win one night and then to be able to sustain that lead even if you're a little bit off. That's the second night. We could talk about that in 4-wheel drive, and I'm sure we will with Tyler Cobb and his decision making. We could also talk about that with Denny Brown. If you look back at first night Pro Stock 310, and what do? You got no way to judge whether that's a good pull and possible winning distance or whether it's not. And that test pull can be an advantage, but most pullers often look at it as a disadvantage. Some of them would rather not have the choice because they just flip the coin and it's always going to come up tails.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that 4-wheel drive class. All right. Making his first ever appearance in Chapel Hill after several invitations he's had to decline, Jake Zering once again showed that rule number 19 belongs on the Grand National stage. Zering's 323 held for 3 hooks and was good for an eventual third. The man who passed him, Mark Mangan, and his Outlaw, had also dabbled for years on the premier level circuit in between regional commitments and won the big prize on Friday night. The most experienced GN veteran of the 3 might well, though, have been Carmen Foster, now in her 6th year of full-time driving on the Grand National circuit, and with several championship chases to her credit. She piloted Foster Child to 327 feet to land right in between and move her Chevrolet up a couple notches in the standings. 3 late-class hooks decided things in the waning minutes of the event on Saturday night, and you've already heard all the names. First, Zering took rule number 19 a couple inches past Paul Holman's foreplay. Then Carmen aced that with a 320-foot pass of her own for her first Chapel Hill win on hook number 13. Her dad knows that feeling as a multi-time winner of the Lion Super Bowl himself. And old Crazy Jake wasn't done as he parked his other Dodge Fatheads Eyewear just behind Foster to complete an excellent points weekend for his tandem of trucks. In a touching moment in the 4-wheeler interviews that began the night, Carmen credited her mom and dad, Tanya and Rob, as being the best role models ever. And everyone watching this hopefully knows that truck and tractor pulling is the kind of sport you can take families to. What you may not know is how many familial bonds have been strengthened when the kids take an interest in their father or mother's favorite sport, and how many other families have been created from people who would otherwise have never met except at some county fairground or even a supranational event like Chapel Hill. Standings-wise, Ted Skelton continues to hold on to the first place he earned his own since Rockwell, with the Holmans giving chase at 4 points back. Zering's rule number 19 is also 4 back, but would lose the tiebreak on wins. And Foster Child, mired in the teens in the standings just a few weeks ago, sits 4th at -6 and ahead of Zering's Fatheads Eyewear. Barry Cobb maintained the 6th position that he had coming into Tennessee, and is 8 points behind Fatheads for the final Enderley transfer.
Yeah, Jake Zering having himself a weekend. 3 top 3 finishes between his 2 trucks. And I was watching the list on Saturday night, and as we were going down, I'm like, wow, this is going to be interesting. You know, Carmen's at the bottom. Jake's got both of his trucks at the bottom. I'm like, that's like, you know, and I think Mangan I didn't see exactly. He might have been more in the middle, but at least 2 out of the 3
was.
from the podium. I was like, that's kind of interesting that they have last hooks, and obviously it's a random draw on when you go and everything, but I'm like, that could really make a difference, and it did. And I actually had a chance to talk with Carmen before Saturday's poll.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dom Santina with the NTPA Championship Polling, and I'm here with Carmen Foster, driver of the Foster Child. And we are here in Chapel Hill, Tennessee. Carmen, back-to-back second-place finishes now on the season. Rockwell, Iowa, now here in Session 1 in Chapel Hill. What do you think it's going to take to get you to the top step of the podium?
I'm not sure. I need to drive harder, and we need to pay attention to the track and just see what happens.
All right. Well, regardless, you're moving up in the points, 4th after Session 1, now just 11 back of the points leader. You beat all 3 in front of you last night. Are you focused on points, or is it just taking it one session at a time right now?
Just taking it one session at a time. I mean, points are in the back of my mind, but that's not a worry at the moment.
Still got to feel pretty good, though, to know that you're climbing up in the standings, right?
Oh, for sure. That's the best part. We're coming into the second half of the season and just hope it goes up from here.
And are we going to see you back up on the podium again tonight?
I'm sure going to try hard. Hopefully it can be number 1.
And, I talked to her, when was that win going to come? And eventually it did come there on Saturday night. And one thing that we just talked about it briefly just a couple seconds ago about Tyler Cobb. He goes down, he pulls a 3:22, and he's like, well, I'm not going to take that. I'm going to hope that it pays off in the end. And he told some of our officials that, I think I heard it on the broadcast that night.
Yeah, Miles. He had told Miles before. Yep.
He said that if he didn't pull 320, or if he didn't pull farther than 320, he was going to turn the pull down. Well, he pulled 322, and turns out, they mentioned it on the broadcast throughout the night. And I was thinking it in the booth, every time that a truck goes down the track, it just starts sinking in more and more. Like, was that a bad decision? Was that a bad decision? And unfortunately, that would have been the winning pull.
Yep. It would have been, but there were still runs left in that track. Because that's what a lot of people will say. If somebody turns that down, well, didn't you know the track was going to get worse and worse? Well, again, you look at 11, 13, and 15. Those are your top 3 trucks in the class out of 16 trucks to pull. So I think only because Tyler had some difficulties with the truck, actually had a rough ride when he came back for his final attempt. Was he really out of it? He may well have driven right back up through there because there was still some track left. Always easy to Monday morning quarterback a call like that, and just you feel just terrible for the guy because he could have had a pretty big prize, pretty big trophy for the mantle there, but. That'll come. That day will come for him. He has a Grand National win in Benson, North Carolina. I think one since, but that's the one that sticks out to me was his first one, and he'll get that other one in Chapel Hill someday, I'm sure, as he keeps plugging at it. Regarding Carmen, what can you say? You have a great pulling family. She's the 3rd generation to pull. Her grandpa Dick pulled modifieds, and of course Rob for years has pulled the Simply Red 4-wheel drive. And mother Tanya pulled Foster Child herself for a couple of years, but turned the keys over to Carmen, and they've never looked back with that father-daughter team.
Yeah, absolutely. They got it hooked up right now, and we'll see with 5 hooks left to go, they can bring home a championship.
Yep. It will be a different thing for her because in her previous 2 best shots at titles, only the last couple of years of full Grand National competition in 18 and 19, she led early, and then it just kind of faded. And now she's seeing what it's taking to come up through after having a rough start to a season. And maybe that's to her liking.
Yep. All right. Well, we got 2 Grand National events this weekend, John.
We do indeed. Yeah, Fort Recovery, Ohio, the old one of the original Grand Nationals in the sense that as one-time Polar magazine designer, I had the opportunity to look back at the historical archives, and that poll was advertised in the very early 70s in the Polar magazine, and it's been an OSTPA poll, and it's been an NTPA poll for any number of years, and always great to get back to Fort. And then we got Brandenburg, the Meade County Fair Grand Nationals, and NTPA Nationals, and it will have 4 classes of its own. So we'll talk about the classes at each of those events. Brandenburg has Super Farm, Pro Stock, Light Super Stock, the Alkies typically, and then also 4-wheel drive trucks. So we just talked about and we should mention the current points leader. We talked about Carmen and her rise to the rankings, but Ted Skelton's hanging on to that top spot, and he'll be going down there trying to defend that through the weekend in Brandenburg on an all-new track to the 4-wheel drives. It's been many years since they've been in Brandenburg, if ever before. I must admit, didn't check that, but we'll see if they ever have been. It's been two-wheel drive country for quite a long time. Over in Fort, we've got Superstock diesels. We have got Unlimiteds, of course, because they're always there at Ford Recovery. We've got the Minis. And then let's see, on the Superstock diesel 4x4s, who we did not see this past weekend in Chapel Hill. They've been off since Rockwell. So they'll be back in action this coming weekend, as well as regional national modifieds and the national debut of limited light Superstocks. So we'll have a chance to see them go down the track for the first time in NTPA competition at Fort Recovery this Friday and Saturday, July 30th and 31st.
And I know there is a live streaming option for the Fort Recovery poll at ntpa.tv as well. So you can see both of those days if you can't make it out to Fort Recovery.
Yep, 7 p.m. start both nights. It is Eastern time, unlike Chapel Hill. So make sure you get there in time to tune in at about 6:45. Matt will have the broadcast cranked up.
Yep. All right. Anything else we missed?
Boy, I don't think so. We better get off so people can go get their tickets or go sign up for the live stream. They've got a busy weekend ahead of them.
Yes, they do. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody.